Do you ever remember walking into your lunchroom on the first day of school where you didn't really even know who was going to be in your lunch period? You walk into the room with your lunch tray and you scan around the room for familiar faces, but you don't really see any. And then that moment of panic. Are you going to be sitting by yourself? Are you going to look like a loser? If you don't recognize that feeling, you were probably popular. But for the rest of us, that feeling is just all way too familiar. That sense of wanting, needing to belong. So that is our topic for today, that subject of needing to belong, but as it translates to fashion. Because you know what? It is a lot more than just small, medium, and large. There's so much more to it. Hey guys, welcome to Alia & Co., the podcast where we talk about complex things and we break them down and we simplify them. I'm Alia Kizelbosh, I'm your host, and today we have a guest that is no stranger to fashion. She is a serial entrepreneur. She understands this entire institutional space to such a degree that basically you really need to dig in and be able to have that firsthand experience to understand it yourself. The way that she started, which is pretty cool, is in the .com era where she was in digital transformation, marketing, search engines, the very beginning of the internet, if you think about it. But now she's in fashion tech, and we are here with her today. Dana Todd, very, very nice to have you here.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks so much. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think we should.
Pod, by the way.
What? That's sweet. Thank you very much. And the pod is excited to ask you some questions, and we really want to start. We just want to just jump right in.
Let's do it.
When you think of fashion, and you have a component of body that goes along with it,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, do you think the real body, the real issue is your body? Or do you think that maybe there was a little bit more to it where it's like what your access is when it comes to purchase?
Oh, that's a big one to unpack. What I would say is that almost never in the history, I'm talking particularly for women's fashion because that's what I know and experience. That's what I spent the bulk of my recent career looking at. Mm-hmm. Fashion itself, clothing itself was either protective, right? Keep the rain off you,
mm-hmm, right,
and the cold in Chicago.
Yes, exactly.
Or it was adorning. Mm-hmm. To attract people to you, mm-hmm. right? And then from that, then we became tribes. You were talking about belonging, mm-hmm. right? So clothing could indicate what social strata you were in, or what tribe you were in, or what sports team you're in. So clothing itself has always meant a lot more things, and the body has almost always been an afterthought. Mm-hmm. And it really has. We didn't think too much about our bodies in fashion unless we were trying to contort the way it looks, right?
Right.
We think about the corsets and, and the padding and everything that goes into clothing is either to obfuscate or to restrict or somehow morph the body. Very seldom do you see something that truly just celebrates the body and begins with your body as its foundation.
Right. And I think every body is also very different.
Yeah.
Every body as in physically, I mean, and that's the thing is though, with all of these like standardizations in size, I mean, we were just talking about models and how even they have trouble fitting into clothes.
Oh, yeah.
But then at the same time, these clothes are designed, quote unquote, for that model-esque body. Like, where did that even begin? Like, how does that even become something that, you need to compute?
Yeah. So it's a little chaotic. When I first came in, I did not start in a fashion background. Mm-hmm. I started in a technology background. Before that, I was a journalist. Mm-hmm. So I've always come at the world from a place of curiosity and why is that way, right? Mm-hmm. So when I first started feeling my body changing mm-hmm. and looking for clothes and then realizing like, why don't things fit, right? What is it me? Mm-hmm. And when I kept digging and unpacking layer after layer, I found that this goes back, hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And if we look at our modern approach to fashion, it's still working off of data and assumptions and mathematical models that are sometimes 50 to 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And humans' bodies have changed a lot. And by the way, those models were built on very small quantities of data for a very limited set of bodies, and typically very fit, very white, very, slim, not looking at the full spectrum and not creating solutions from a data standpoint. So yeah, the body diversity is insane. I've seen a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
I've made things for a lot of different bodies. And it strikes me that it's almost impossible for any brand to try to fit everyone, but we can get a lot closer than we're doing now.
Right.
So you brought up models, for example.
Yeah.
Models will tell you themselves that they have a hard time buying clothes to fit. They can't buy off the rack because they have very weird bodies. They have very long arms, very long legs, sometimes long torsos, very long. Everything for them is elongated. So they represent like 1, maybe 2% of the population. The clothes that are made for them on the runway or for photo shoots are not typically the same pattern that you would use to actually sell it in a store or online. It would be completely redeveloped. But when they do that redevelopment, there are a lot of assumptions. And one of the core issues that a core assumption is that 90% of the clothing that's made is made for what's called an hourglass body shape. So we kind of know in general what an hourglass looks like, but that actually has a mathematical definition. An hourglass means you have 10 inches between your bust and your waist, and then 10 inches between your waist and your hips.
10 inches for shape?
Yeah. So it assumes 2 things. One, that your bust and your hips are exactly the same.
Okay.
Sorry, pairs.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right?
Sorry,
Yeah,
pairs.
exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it assumes that you've got this very, nipped in waist.
Yeah.
Sorry, apples.
Right, exactly. Right. Sorry,
or
everyone.
middle-aged ladies or anyone who's had a child. Sorry about that.
Right,
No,
exactly.
not you.
Yeah.
So 90% of the clothes are made for an hourglass figure as the foundational, assumption for making the pattern. Guess what percent of the population actually has a hourglass figure?
Probably, I'm going to say less than 5%, probably.
It's a little bit more. But 10%. It's 10%.
But still good.
Yeah. But so if 90% of the clothes are only really going to fit 10% of the population,
right.
It's women's bodies.
Yeah.
We've really created a significant disconnect. And the result of that is certainly unhappy women who blame their own bodies. Right.
Yeah.
And also a lot of clothes that are either unsold or returned or end up in landfills. So it's creating planetary waste that is honestly destructive. It's destructive to ego, it's destructive to planet. So it's compounding now because we have thousands and thousands of clothes being produced every minute.
Right. And I totally understand. It's like, there are items in my closet that I've purchased and the return policy window is over. So now it's just sitting in my closet and I'm hoping that I can pass it down or give it to somebody, it's so fulfilling. But let's kind of I would love to, and I know you touched on it a little bit because you're talking about those clothes that were designed for a very small pool of women, right? Those individuals that chose that very small pool, I think that there might have been some level of detachment from reality, because if you're going outside, you're not seeing that kind of pool, right?
That's not who's around you.
Yeah. So who decides what a normal body is, and why have the rest of us just been left off the blueprint?
Oh, this is a deep question. This gets into the psychology of women. So there's an aspirational body, which is what we see on the runway. And we've been taught now for decades that, and by the way, that model keeps changing.
Yeah.
We had Twiggy.
Yeah.
So she's super skin, like a little boy body. Right. And then we had, for a hot minute there, we got curvy models.
Yeah. Implants, butt implant, everything came in. And
everybody was getting a Brazilian butt lift. And the Kardashians were out there really, everybody wanted curves suddenly.
Right.
And yay, clothes have curves. And so everyone kind of followed that. So that shifting ideal, still generally speaking, is only a small part of the population, but we're taught we need to be that body if we want to wear those clothes. So it's aspirational and perhaps not achievable. More around us are what we see are the normals, right? And one of the reasons why those two are so separate is because there's actually totally different parts of the fashion world, right? there's fashion as you see it on Instagram. There's the designers, there's the models, there's the parties, there's the runway. There's all of that, the hype, the names, the brands, the sexiness, all of that is really a lot closer to an entertainment industry, right?
Okay, that's interesting.
They have to create those hype cycles to push demand, to build brands, right? It's a necessary part, but they do not give a flying F about you and your body. In fact, I was literally told that when I first started out in the industry. I met a woman who agreed to kind of give me some consult, and she was working for she was a
juicy information.
Right? Well, just I was I don't even know anything about this. I came from tech. I came from 20 years in tech, and I was like, how do I? What is this? What is this industry you have, and how can I fix it? Because I see a problem here.
Absolutely,
with us not creating things that fit the bulk of normal women.
Right.
And she was kind of a little snotty. She was very demeaning about the conversation, because she said, well. And I could see her flipping her head.
Yeah. I can see that. I'm visualizing that very.
Designers don't want to make clothes for their mothers.
Oh.
And it was such a stab in the heart. And I was like, okay, but there's a lot of moms, right?
Yeah.
And they have money.
Yes.
And they buy things, right?
Yeah.
So where's this disconnect, right? So that's the fashion, the hype side, the people who create the illusion, the fantasy, what we put up as an ideal that we want creates desire. Those people only talk to the make side of things, which is the largest bulk of the industry, are the people who actually make these dreams come true and try to fit it on bodies and get it out there. And so we're talking about, a fraction of people on the hype side compared to the millions of workers on the garment side, everything from engineers to sewists.
But that's the thing is, though, it's like in those kinds of scenarios where they don't want to create items for their mother, blah, blah, blah. But maybe they also don't want to sell items that sell. So I feel like, if you're skipping over that, I mean, so, and also the snottiness, because you do sometimes encounter people. Do you think that maybe there's something to also that exclusivity that is there too, that you have to behave this and be this persona to, make it seem like, not accessible for everybody.
Yes, you have to fit in their box.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In their clothing, in their size ideal, in their color spectrum. Don't look at that color. Sorry, honey.
Yeah.
Wait for another decade where your colors come in.
Right? Yeah, there you go. But that's the thing is maybe creating the exclusivity, but then also if that's your only option, then maybe you'll come back and buy a different size to think in maybe some ways, okay, maybe this will fit, or, I mean, do you think it's feeding into, their sales by being exclusive, or is it the converse?
Well, so here's the dirty little secret. All those famous names, almost none of them are profitable.
Yeah.
They're really not.
Yeah.
And most of the money that they do make is from licensing deals and perfume. They make almost no money on their clothing. They really don't. Their margins are, So again, they're not really trying to solve the problem.
Oh.
They're just trying to continue making money off the name. The brand matters more.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So the clothing companies that are making money, the ones that you see making billions and billions of dollars.
Zara, or
Shein, the ones who are listening to the data.
Exactly.
They're looking at the trends out there. They're not saying, it's not fall yet. Can't think about a fall line.
Yeah, right.
They're seeing people talking about fall clothes. They're like, oh, quickly, let's make some fall clothes. Right. So they're executing in these faster cycles. And by listening to the people, by listening to the data and responding in smaller batches, they don't care about being on the runway. They care about mass quantities of sales.
Yeah. That's such a sad way to kind of deal with something that is so human. Yeah. Because you are clothing humans.
Yeah.
Was there a psychological component to it in terms of your journey of understanding this entire space? And I will say that, in tech, as we kind of move forward just into the future, I mean, decades have gone by and we've had so many amazing kind of accomplishments, right? The thing is, then you have these domains that are very institutional, where it's fashion, for example, that has nothing to do with quote unquote tech. But but as we move forward, you need it, right? Because that's how you're getting access to people, right? And just the way that we kind of, whether it's digitally on social media or if it's like, just metrics, understanding what the numbers are. Even if you, just standing in front of a Zara, right? If you go and you stand in front of a Zara storefront, there's sensors that will detect your phone and then realize that if you're signed up or for whatever it is, or they're, third partying your data or whatever, basically you will then get emails from Zara just by standing in front of Zara, which is kind of, so there is a massive impact when it comes to tech. So, being somebody that is in that tech space and has, basically explored and pioneered in these spaces, how do you see yourself now fitting into this fashion space? And when was it like the light bulb where it was like, okay. Was there anything personal for you like that where you were like, wait a minute?
Yeah, well, there are two distinct moments. The first one was actually when I built my market. So let me explain. Balodana has 2 iterations in its history. We began life as a marketplace where women could buy clothing from designers and have them made to their body measurements. We did not have standard sizing. There wasn't a small, medium, and large. You uploaded your body measurements, you could scan yourself or do it manually, and then you would buy from makers all over the world who specialized in women's bodies. And so that was our first iteration. And honestly, the big aha moment for that was, I was very frustrated trying to find cool, interesting clothes that fit my body, because once you get to a certain age, you have to go to Chico's, right? That's like, there you go, honey, go to Chico's, right? So that, because it's stretchy and tenty, and all the boutiques are like tenty clothes, but they don't look good. They don't look edgy. I was an executive. I was a chief marketing officer.
You were shopping at Talbot's.
Exactly. I was like, I needed to look really like cool. Right. So, when I got my first piece of custom made clothing from Romania, and I put it on and it fit perfectly.
Right.
And it was cool as hell.
Yeah.
Like completely like my personality. I was like, why isn't all shopping like this?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that was like in my head, like, why? That was amazing. Why can't I, do all my shopping like this? But also, how do I remember my size, and my body measurements? Like, couldn't somebody just make like a Macy's for made to measure where they have all these different brands and it remembers your size, your data and blah, blah. And then I had this, like, I make web experiences. That's what I do. I work with data. Hey, I could do that. So that was actually what led me down the starting point of creating that first. And I literally like brought people in from all over the world. We had 15 makers, 10 countries, and we're really executing on that mission and that vision of letting any woman, no matter how tall or short or heavy or thin or curvy or asymmetrical her body was, she could find something that would fit her. And it wasn't about blaming her and her body. Right. So that was an incredible part of my journey. And we spent 7 years on that part of it. This new pivot that we're doing now, we've shut down the marketplace. Now we're focused on businesses. And honestly, I was struggling on the tech side because you described some tech things. There's way more tech in fashion than you can imagine. Everything from supply chain tracking to smart textiles to circularity embeds to, pattern making, parametric patterns. They're like, the more you dig, the more technology there is. There's actually far more engineering in garments than I ever expected. It's so much 3-dimensional engineering and understanding of physics and fabric science and all of this. It's a lot of tech baked into the simplest of things. Right. So I was struggling to find my place in that. And I want to kind of go back to the data piece. And I'd love to talk a little bit about standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that.
What I've found in these 7 years of digging and meeting people and literally just building my own personal university, right? My fashion tech university to try to understand this. Because when I walked in and thought like, the problem with fit is the data. We're not looking at the data. We're not listening to the data. We're not sharing the data. It's not standardized in any format that can be utilized. Everything exists in these little pockets. So I saw the issue ultimately as a data and a standards issue. No connectivity, no speaking the same languages, no combined vision for how that could all work.
Right.
So when I came to this year, trying to figure out okay, where do I build?
Mhm.
We actually, by the way, we had a couple of ideas over the last couple of years,
Yeah.
and we put out like fake websites
Right.
to see if the market would buy them, right? We're like, okay, we promoted that. We promoted our manufacturing services. So we're doing small batch manufacturing, and we were trying to like layer in different technologies to see who would take the bite.
Yeah.
None of them were working.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, good. I didn't spend a lot of money on engineering.
Good. Exactly.
Right?
You need to test it. Yeah, for sure.
So what has happened this year is some really big stuff. One, Europe has created a law around a requirement. If you're going to be selling any clothes into the European Union, and that's a big chunk of countries, you need to have a digital product passport. So that is forcing anybody who's making garments in selling them in the UK. Well, actually, they're not in the EU anymore, but they'll be right on this. Trust me. All the other countries will.
Right.
They're going to have a way of transmitting data.
Okay.
Right? They're going to have to house that data, store that data, share that data. So foundations are being built. At the same time, we've got like Google with their virtual try-on. Like that's coming out there, right?
Yeah.
We've got, as you talked about, these smart mirror technologies scanning your body. That's out there. But none of the systems are talking to each other. All of those places out there, those digital discovery engines, we've got AI. Now you can tell AI, hey, I have a wedding in 3 weeks. Find me a pink dress that looks like this. And here's some inspo pictures. Find this in my size and It'll go find it for you.
Yeah,
right?
it might be ugly, but it still will find it for you.
Right? It's getting better.
It is totally getting better.
So all of those endpoints are out there. There's nobody doing the blocking and tackling on the data side that I've seen.
Right.
And so that's my background.
Yeah. And it's so important because in a lot of these spaces that don't, conventionally have a lot to do with tech, a lot of their categories are so siloed. And, they're all trying to, it's like, hey, we need to, some advancement. We need to, and so in that one silo, they might try to focus on that, but then they don't realize that maybe somebody else is behind. And then you're not also speaking to each other because there's so much involved with that,
Yeah.
And so like, what is the experience that you're having and how are you trying to bridge the gap between that?
It's highly disconnected. And that's one of our primary focus areas. And it's hard to figure out where to start connecting things. So that's why we're kind of starting. Oh, my visions are way bigger. I want to connect a lot of things.
But
one of the
as it should be.
One of the things that I found that was, in our history, like I said, we could body scan you, and I could give my tailors 150 measurements on your body,
right?
Absolutely everything that they'd ever want to know, and a 3-dimensional avatar. Well, guess what? Most of our factories did.
Right.
They would just ignore all of that. They'd pick out like 2 or 3 measurements, and then they would still go back to their assumptions.
Yeah.
So that is normal. All these wonderful 3D. There's a great company called Clo 3D that's doing teaching. It's making it very accessible financially and from a technology perspective for fashion designers to think in 3D as they're making those clothes. But then again, when you hand that off to the pattern making team, it falls apart every time. I'm never going to be able to fix that level of disconnect until we go all the way back to the factory. Yeah. All the way back to the original vision. So the first point of solution that we're focusing on is turning what's called a tech pack. So that's the set of instructions that the factory works with. And some of the outputs for that include the physical measurements of the garment itself. How long is it? What's the circumference of the bust, waist, hips, etc. Having that data being passed through, not just that, but also context for the data. Right. So what does that 34-inch bust mean if it's a stretchy material? Yeah. Right. So is that going to be better suited to a woman with a 36-inch bust because it's intended to be compression? Right. Right. Yes, so data and context, if we can start packaging this up and get it from the factories where it's more pure, more clean, more accurate, instead of what's happening right now, which is that you're getting it from these size guides, which are generally wrong. Yeah, I know. Where did the size guides come from? That's where I love from the marketing department, or somebody somewhere along the way made one and no one's ever looked at it or checked to see that it's accurate. Right. Or it may just be for a few styles, but not all of them. Yeah. But
Yeah, but every piece of clothing as a shopper, right? You go in, certain sizes run small, run large, true to size, etc. But the thing is that a small in one brand may be kind of a medium in another brand, which is so confusing because, where does one fit into anything? I mean, how do you even know?
That's where the aha came for me. So going back to my history, you mentioned digital advertising, search marketing. So I came from traditional advertising. I have an advertising degree. I started out in print. There's an old saying, in advertising back in the print days that if 50% of my advertising is wasted, I just don't know which 50%. Right?
Yeah.
So digital marketing was focused on changing that. Was focused on making it more efficient in the moment, responsive to demand, responsive to data. And it worked. And that's why Google has consumed 50% or more of the ad dollars out there. It's because when someone is searching, they have an intent. They may be somewhere along the decision funnel. They're either in research stage or they're somewhere near buy stage, right? So if we take that same approach to clothing, that each one of those ads is uniquely tailored for you in this moment.
Yeah.
And has a lot of data packed around it, right? A lot of attachment. So if we can bring that individuality to the data describing a piece of clothing, right? So we have its applicability to not just size, but also to the event. Like we have a lot of data packed in. If you approach clothing that way, each piece of clothing could actually sell itself,
right? Yeah,
to the right buyer,
right? Absolutely, yeah.
So if we can take that Google, and this is you asked about the aha. So the bigger aha this year was when I went, oh no, I see my paths are converging, right?
Right, yeah.
I can look at what kind of efficiency and perfect connection we were able to make in the digital marketing space. Now we can do that same thing. If we start packing our boxes, not just with clothing, but understanding of those clothes, then we can push them out into a lot of different places for people to discover them and hopefully love them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a massive kind of undertaking, but it's so necessary, right? I think one kind of point that I have to that is that, yes, we're looking at all of these other metrics, right? What I wore to my taste towards an evening event versus what I would be wearing if I'm lounging in front of the TV or, mood wise, right? Like, I mean, I think that a lot of companies are collecting information, unbeknownst to the individual that is, or even scrolling. For example, if I'm buying chocolate at some point in the month, maybe I might be in a mood and then I'm like, Googling what's wrong with me. Chances are it could be that time of the month, And so the data will very much so recognize that. And then it'll, kind of maybe sell you some Motrin or an ad for something will come up or whatnot. Yeah. So the thing is, though, is it going to be the same as that, where as a human that is using tech and maybe someone that maybe doesn't know about like privacy policies or the way that third-party data is being sold, is it the same with clothes? Are you looking to kind of like create this one umbrella of a human's history, like even in health tech, right? They're trying to like with the Web3, blockchain, blah, 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 all of that.
Yeah.
How are we going to, is that something that you're thinking about or?
It is actually, and something just happened in the last couple of weeks. We reported it. We have a newsletter where we track fashion technology happenings, both investments and really novel innovations in the fashion tech space. And Samsung is going to be investing in wearables, not just a smart watch. No, they've already got one of those. They're making earrings and necklaces.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh, but wait. At the same week they announced that, they also bought a health records company. So what you're describing is not too far off from reality. Yeah. And it is obviously I worry and am concerned. I mean, I have a lot of body scans that we have to keep secure, right? So we are always concerned about people's data and privacy. What I will say, though, what I learned from all the years in digital marketing is that people are only really bothered by the Snoopy ads, if they're wrong.
Yeah, if they're, you know what? That would piss me off. Yes, if they're
Right?
wrong.
If they're wrong,
If they're
and you're like,
accurate,
I
then that's
already
okay.
bought that thing. Stop
Exactly.
chasing me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when they're wrong is when we notice it, or
Yeah.
if it's just a little too close to the conversation we had 20 minutes
Yes.
ago, but didn't put anything in, right? So
Yeah.
that's where we start getting a
It's
little
the
bit.
creepiness factor that
Yeah.
starts to kind of like, I'm being watched
Yeah,
and I don't like this.
When it does our bidding,
Yeah.
when it makes our lives easier, we'll give up privacy all day long, all day, every day.
Isn't that's such an interesting concept? And there's a huge psychological component to all of these kinds of ways that we can extrapolate. I would say, all right, so I'd like to shift gears a little bit because I know we did talk about standardization in size, but then you also have like, you're talking about like diversity. I mean, you weren't talking about it, but like, there is that aspect of it where
huge.
plus size models will come in and, you'll have a company that will start like a new, this sportswear or something where it's trying to seem as though, hey, we're inclusive and we're including all of these and we're trying to make sure that everybody fits everywhere.
Yeah.
And from a marketing perspective, that could be great, right? But then if you're not catching up on the manufacturing side, then what happens? And so is this something that happens a lot where we were having a discussion, we were talking about how just even the way that a dress will be marketed, if it's a model that is, thin and whatnot, wearing a dress and then a plus size model wearing the same dress, the model actually sells out first.
Yeah.
Whereas the plus size model won't. So it's the same size. So,
yeah,
so tell us about what you think in terms of that image and,
That particular anecdote shocked me. And it was actually one of our makers who had an Etsy shop. And she put the same dress up, same price, same description, everything. In one ad, she featured the plus size model wearing it. In the other, she pictured, I think probably herself, but a standard size model. And the standard size model outsold significantly beyond the curvy model. But even more so, the people who were, because everything she did was made to measure, or she gave you the option. The bulk of the plus size sales of actual women needing plus size bought from the thinner model.
Wow.
And that goes back to that aspirational thing.
It's the aspirational
thing. A lot of people don't want to really see their bodies. I'm going to phrase that. I think we say, I don't even know that we have an awareness that we're not looking at our own bodies. When we talk about body dysmorphia, we assume that it's only for people who have eating disorders. We don't. When I look at my body, I kind of see it, and then I superimpose my 25-year-old body and I'm like, yeah, looking good, and then sometimes I'll superimpose someone else's body that I just saw in a magazine or whatever, like, oh yeah, that looks better. Like, I don't necessarily see myself in a mirror. So sometimes it's shocking to see myself in pictures where I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
Right? There is a disconnect. And I wonder sometimes if men have the same issue or if they're even aware of it, but there's been more discussion around it. So to your point about, there's a disconnect in people's understanding of themselves and their bodies, and women have a lot of issues around this. And, one of the things that I saw in 5 years of fitting clothes on women and making things for them is that they blame themselves, they blame their body, they assume that they can't have certain things if they are curvy or whatever. They assume that world is locked away for them. Yeah. It cuts them off emotionally from even exploring. And you don't have to be like a heavy person necessarily. Diversity is not just about, plus size, by the way. There's also petites, there's tall. Right. I mean, the first time I fit a suit on a young woman who had just graduated law school, it was her first baby attorney suit. Her mom got it for her. And she had incredibly long arms. She was very tall. Her wingspan was basically the same as her height. She had like a 6-foot wingspan. Wow. She cried when she put the jacket on and it fit her. Oh. Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah.
There's nothing like feeling comfortable. You need to feel comfortable in what you're wearing. If it fits well, then you feel good.
Yeah.
But that's
it's such a meaningful thing for women to feel seen. And accepted and fit and their confidence. Like, I'm wearing custom right now.
Yeah.
In a hurry, I will go for a custom. I have a bunch of them now.
Yeah,
Thank
it
God.
looks great.
I
Yeah.
love custom. Like
Yeah.
the first time I ever got a piece of custom clothing changed my life. And now I find it so difficult to shop normal.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I
Right.
just want what I want. I don't want
Exactly.
to have to go through the filter of the season, the
Yeah.
colors,
Yeah.
all the filters that are placed on me
Right.
that diminish my choices.
Mhm.
Why can't I have it all? Why isn't life like
Right.
this?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that speaks to a lot of women, a lot of men too. I mean, there is their bodies shift too,
Very much so.
but I think specifically for women, and we were talking about how we think, whereas it's like, oh, something's wrong with her. She's, oh, why is she in such a mood? Why or whatever, The thing is, though, throughout the course of our lives, we fluctuate, and actually that's standard. Every woman is fluctuating.
Yeah.
But to your also point about how you see yourself in maybe a picture, or yourself in the mirror, or after you've tried something on. I mean, there was a study that was done where we are actually 20% more attractive than what we think we are, which is interesting because it's like, and then there's people that are photogenic that look very different in photos than they look in real life, and they might be more attractive in real life than in photos, or vice versa. There's so much. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, and that opens up another can of worms. Oh my gosh, because it's like with filters now, because we know what we can look like with a filter.
Yes.
So our normal doesn't look as good because we're like,
the return to office people are like,
exactly. So you go to a plastic surgeon and be like, listen, just give me that filter on my face.
Exactly.
Forever.
Can I just have this?
Just like,
walk around like
exactly.
that.
But the thing is that it's like, it's the fact that we see ourselves differently,
right.
And to be able to then find out why that happened to begin with.
Yeah.
Why? Why is there something in your journey that you've seen? Why do we not see ourselves for what we are?
Well, we're constantly, not to make everything about data, but
it is. It's information.
We don't know how to judge things without context, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember because I used to go out and do a lot of manual measuring with women.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always a really sensitive thing
mm-hmm.
to measure a woman and give her numbers. Because women, and not since the 50s, the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel,
Yes,
there's that episode where she's obsessively measuring herself, and that women then did that.
Yeah.
They knew their body measurements.
Ooh.
We don't know our body measurements now. We have not been exposed to that data.
Mm-hmm.
All of women's body data is rolled into a single number, size 10, or a single letter, size medium.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the only data we're allowed to have.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give a person a picture of themselves, that's data, right? They're seeing that. They don't know if they're attractive unless they're looking at, how do I compare to this person or this person?
Right.
When I give women their body measurements, I found some women, you could see them just kind of looking at you like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is that big?
Yes.
Is that small?
Yeah.
Am I normal?
Yeah.
Like, they wanted to know that. And so part of what I would always do is try to be extremely neutral in delivering the information. Mm-hmm. And then give them some understanding of it. Okay, so what I see here is proportionally, we have a broad shoulder. So we're always going to make sure, or there may be a difference between the front measure of the shoulder and the back. We're going to make sure that we take that into account when we go up this way. You show them, it's not to compare your data like, oh, you're skinnier than normal, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to say, here's how you compare to everyone else's data. Mm-hmm. You want to say, here's what that data means to me and how I'm going to solve your problem, right? So if women understand their faces and their bodies as things to be loved, things to be solved for, things to be, right? I got a poochy belly. All right. Therefore, do I want to camouflage it or do I want to suck it in?
Yeah.
It's a problem to be solved, or it's a thing, right?
Or do you want to leave it out? You can just
leave it out. Do I want to just let it out? Because a lot of people do. Yeah. And I do that on the weekends for sure. Right? Right? So we get to choose what we do with that information. I wish we all had the confidence. I had the confidence to do that all the time, but it's very hard not to compare yourself constantly to how you
to the models, to the idea of somebody that has been airbrushed, somebody that is fitting into whatever, and there's a lot of kind of editing going on,
and youth,
and youth,
mature
Yeah.
bodies are squishier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you as an entrepreneur, when I go out there and I talk, I'm apparently like the world's oldest female entrepreneur in
No.
startup land. It's weird. I'm not, but it seems like that when you look at the pitch competitions, when you look at a lot of the startup conversations and Business Insider and all of these, it's a very youth obsessed culture, right?
Yeah.
And so as a mature founder, I think it was I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were talking about how women kind of try to make themselves invisible, right? Even when we're younger, so we're trying not to be, essayed.
Yeah.
But as you get older, it happens naturally. There's like it's a part when I let my hair go gray, it's as if I just faded into the walls,
Yeah.
right? You become truly invisible. And then you don't necessarily want to be invisible.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I've got a hella brain. I got energy. I got ideas. I got experience now. I can put this to work. I'm not going to blow all your VC money on hookers and cocaine, right? I'm bringing a lot to the table here. Notice me, right? And yet there's still just this like, shouldn't you be raising grandchildren?
Oh gosh.
Shouldn't you not
There's always
care
a
about
stigma.
your clothes?
There's always a stigma. I mean, even just like, so there's that, but then also for a woman that might be child rearing, age where it's like, oh, well, what are you going to do when you have that baby? Are you going to be around or are you going to, there's always something to kind of like point the finger at, and so
Never ending.
yeah, it's a never, and then or choosing to go gray, like, and where it's like, all right, I'm done coloring now. I think we're ready to transition into the next step. But there's so many nuances. It's the way that you see yourself. It's the way that others see you, and it's just been this kind of space of kind of never-ending conflict, right? To some degree, and I think it starts at a very personal level where it's you who starts it. I mean, the idea with like Coco Chanel, the reason why she started designing the things that she was doing is because, she really couldn't afford everything that was out there. I mean, she was an orphan, but then also she wanted things that were accessible and comfortable. Yeah. And then they, and so we do have women that are in the space that have kind of come in to try to change things. But then, sometimes there's so much resistance that or it evolves from a corporate space where it's like, let's monetize, I mean, where do you see that? Like, I mean, is that something that, just kind of having to tackle that or seeing it in your space, is something that.
Well, actually, so now the bulk of our revenue now is doing small batch and on-demand manufacturing. So we're actually making clothing for brands with our factory in India. And so many of the brands start with a woman. We even though we make men's clothes, there's still almost always women designers behind the scenes, right? So, or women, maybe they're not even designers. Maybe just they felt this need.
Right.
So a lot of these brands, these smaller independent brands are started by people who want to solve for a problem. They see a gap in the market and it's usually very personal to them. So for example, we're doing a line of golf clothing right now for a woman who's extremely athletic, right? She's got very muscular thighs but she wanted to create an aesthetic that could go to the golf clubs. So the higher end country clubs have certain aesthetic, and there's a little bit of more modesty to it.
Right.
And off the rack, she wasn't seeing what she needed. So we're developing something specific to that. It's super niche, right? Right. So she's looking for a certain type of person. And she's going to find her buyers because she knows them. She didn't come up with fashion.
Right.
Yeah. We've got another person. She came from the rodeo side of things, right? Yeah. So she wanted to have really beautiful, stylish cowgirl shirts that they're aesthetically pleasing, but will allow you to actually ride them, so they're performance, right? They're intended to hold up when you're getting bucked off of a horse, right? So
exactly.
The problem solvers are out there and the entrepreneurs are trying to create these solutions out there. The problem is none of them have any money for marketing. They have limited growth opportunities. All the money's being sucked into these larger organizations. So there is a high fail rate of these independent, just like startups.
Right.
Everybody's trying to solve a problem. Right. You hope you get funding. You hope you get sales. But if you have to spend all your money buying $25,000 worth of inventory because the factories won't touch you, then you've lost before you've even started. So that's why we feel strongly about this approach of doing small batches and making it affordable. So you get to spend more of your money on marketing and growing yourself. And then, being able to solve more problems for more people.
Yeah. So are you saying that the way to solve this problem, because this is a large scale problem. I mean, definitely each person is uniquely different. You want to be able to fit them, in a way where they are happy with their body, like happy with the way that the clothes are fitting them. But that is a large task, right? Because you can't please every single human. Because, yeah, you can't, because the thing is, because there's too much variance.
Yeah.
But if you're going to businesses that are very niche in the sense that, something that doesn't ride up, and, maybe that golf skirt is a little too short to be socializing in, or being taken seriously or whatnot, or, just if you're a cheerleader and you still have to wear a skirt and you're doing flips all over the place, you need to be having their, so what I'm saying is that, like, it's there. Is that the next step is this actually the first step to now be able to create a different version of standardization?
I believe so. And the good news is there really are no standards to break. So, you can start somewhere. I will say there are efforts and ongoing efforts to create more standardization. There are many challenges to that. Globalism is one part of it, right? You're speaking different languages and working literally the difference between, metric and imperial. There's just a lot of issues with that. What I would like, I'm going to invoke a book. And if your listeners like books, I would encourage you to read this book called The End of Average.
Okay. The End of Average. All right.
And as a tax person, as a person in finance, you will find him very interesting.
Okay.
Because I think the guy's name is Robert Rose. Rose is his last name. So he tracks the use of averaging and where it got started. So averaging actually goes all the way back to like the 19th century. I think it was the 19th century, or the early 20th century. And it was like a tech bro. It was like a math bro who was looking at population data.
Oh yeah, was it the insurance? I think he was insurance. And he was looking at average lifespan.
So he was trying to make some sense of this highly disparate data.
Yeah.
And because they didn't have computers back then, right? And he had to manually calculate that. Instead of truly creating the complexity that was there and creating smaller pools and creating understanding around that, he kind of lumped things he created this concept of averaging, which did not exist before then.
Right.
But from the idea of averaging, and the book's really good. It gets into how industrialists and racists took that and ran with that and created our educational system, our 40-hour or our work week, everything comes out of this idea that there exists an average and that it is a useful thing. It was useful because you can't scale without creating some mechanism for scaling.
Right. Yeah.
So it did help. Until it didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Now we're in a state of being as a society and as a capitalist, as a structure. We have so much ability now to truly understand and personalize people. Back to that personalized data in your digital ads, right? We can personalize stuff. We don't have to keep going back to the average pools. We don't have to go back to the 1800s over and over again and say, well, it's average. No, average does not exist.
Right.
It is a construct. It does not exist. And if you accept that and you go, okay, well, what's the next best thing? Then you can start creating micro clusters. Right? So if instead of averaging, we do clusters. So how we solve this for one of our, we have a client who is an online casino. I know. So they needed custom uniforms for their employees. And they had 3 different hiring locations. They have Pennsylvania, they have Atlantic City, New Jersey, and they also have one in, where is it? I'm blanking out. A third one. Oh, Michigan. That's right. Yeah, okay. And what they were finding is that they had very different body needs in each of those locations.
Right.
And some of their girls were very curvy. Some of the girls were very skinny or petite or had very large boobs and no hips. So they were finding and so trying to create a unique size. So we actually created unique size charts for each of their physical locations. And then we deliver against that. So they have their own little average that's, becomes their size chart. And then we evolve that over time as we get feedback and their hiring population changes. And then they only order what they need against that. So we've solved their problem and created the least amount of waste possible and still make sure the girls feel really confident in their clothes.
So was Hooters also doing the same thing? Or
Hooters, call me.
Exactly. I think they're bankrupt now or something.
Oh, but that's a private equity.
That's a different situation.
It's a whole different situation.
I mean, yeah.
But you could, and actually retailers do this all the time. You may not realize this, but what you see in a Walmart in Chicago versus what you see in a Walmart in Los Angeles may have a completely different size chart. So smart retailers have been doing this for quite some time. That they are actually modifying the manufacturing to the region that it's in. And that's why sometimes when you buy on e-commerce, you may get a different.
Oh yeah. I think you go to different countries and you have different. I mean, McDonald's how they do it, where it's like you go to Japan and you have a different menu. You know, actually, have you ever been to the West Loop? McDonald's International. I need to go there.
I've heard they have like a curry burger or something like that. Like limited. I would be all over.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds really good. So segueing the last, and I would love to. This is a point that I'd like to make just because I'm curious.
Yes.
When people, the size 2, size 4, 6, whatever, you're in between somewhere, right? You're trying to. Maybe you shouldn't fit into a size 4. But you can fit into a size 4. When is it a no-no? How do you know what the right size actually is? Because you could squeeze yourself into certain things, but should you?
Well, take a picture, send it to a friend, ask them for input.
Okay, all right, that
Context.
works. That's good. That works.
Comparison.
I know, an honest friend, not a friend that's just going to be like, yeah,
looks fine. It looks good. Right? I mean, I still remember as a teenager during the tight jeans era, my friends and I would literally lie on our backs. Sometimes you had to put your jeans on wet.
Jordache.
Get them on.
Wet?
You're wet. You could. That was one way in an extreme moment. Yeah.
But isn't it harder to get into wet jeans? Look, if your skin's
get
wet.
A little stretch out of them. Because this is before everything was loaded with Lycra. Back then there was no Lycra. It was just that stiff denim, right? So. But we would literally get coat hangers, wire coat hangers, and hook them through the zipper. Yank them up, suck in our bellies, and try to get them on and get them busted. And then, you would sort of lean each other up and then walk around until you could make it. So it was ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. The Jordache jean era, is that what that?
Yeah, they were so tight. They were comfortable. But, I had a lot less body weight back then and it was a lot more. I also wore really high heels.
Yes.
At my age, I'm looking for comfort. And I hear a lot of women saying, I want comfort, but they also don't want to look sloppy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a I think you should. I don't know. My thing is like, do I want to be caught dead in this? Right?
Yeah.
If this was the last thing I wore,
you know what? What?
How would I feel like that?
That's such a good rule of thumb. I'm going to ask myself that question.
Is this the last outfit you're going to wear?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. But that's the thing is though, I think it's, and here's the other thing is like, when it comes from perspective, right? For me, I'll use myself as an example. I will hold on to that size whatever in my closet because I think I'm gonna be fitting into that soon. But that hasn't happened. So.
It's the someday pile. We all have those.
Right. Those in the Sex and the City thing where Miranda has those jeans and she fits into them and it feels so good. I
have more of those than I care to admit.
Yeah.
Honestly, it depends on your age and it depends on if you're on a weight journey. Right. So if you're on a weight journey, that's a whole different world. I would say that if it's been a year and your body hasn't changed, I mean, there's a certain place where all women have a 5-pound swing, 5 to 10 pounds swing.
I mean, within a day, something.
Yeah, right?
Bloatedness, water,
in my
retention.
Because I used to have to track women's bodies and then come back to them and change their clothes. You're not going to see a significant change in how you fit into your clothes until you go beyond that 10-pound swing. So if you are not going to lose more than 10 pounds or gain more than 10 pounds, then, go with what you have right this moment. Okay. And just free up that space. Let someone else adopt it. Yeah. Think of it as like, an orphan child, like, go find a better home. Yeah. Right? Please. Someone will appreciate you. Right now you're just aspirational and you're taking up space.
Yeah. Right.
Put it into the recycle journey. Right. Yeah. I would say that. Wow. I want to go back to the fitting thing, about form fitting. There is a difference in how things fit in Europe versus America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were getting suits made in Europe for American women, and honestly, the first time I got a custom fit suit, I thought it was too small. And it was made by a Romanian company, and she was like, "No, it's perfect. It's literally perfect. It's exactly to your measurements." And I'm like, "But it's touching me.
Yeah.
It's touching me everywhere, right? That just feels like, should it be touching you?" And she was like, "That's literally the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Wear it around for a little bit."
Right.
And luckily it had like a silk lining and stuff, so it moved, and I was like, oh, I get it. And then I saw myself, and I have pictures of it, and I was like, I look good. It's holding me all in. Weirdly, we'll wear Spanx underneath something loose.
Sometimes too.
Yeah, right. We'll hold it all in underneath, but we still want to get what's called ease in our clothing.
Yeah.
So you can wear something that is form fitting, and if you get comfortable with the idea of it being form fitting.
Right.
Now, if it's binding you, if it's making your stomach hurt, right, or if it's causing weird lumps in your displacement of your fat, don't do it.
That's what an interesting point, right? It's like if you are wearing something that might show your back fat, where you have like back cleavage, maybe that doesn't fit you.
Yes. Yeah.
Or maybe it does if you like to look like that. So,
Or look for something that is, because again, you're older, you're squishier. You lose that muscle tone. And if you're a heavier body, you may also be squishier. So look for fabrication and how things are made. So how things are constructed can also be a very big part of it. A lot of European styles, you'll see, like I'm wearing this dress right now. There's an inset back zipper here.
Okay.
That she's a Lithuanian designer, and she is so good at making even a dowdy woman look curvy and beautiful. She celebrates your curves by doing an inset zipper. You create the small of the back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which instantly cuts 5 pounds off.
Right.
That creates a sex appeal.
Interesting.
You get a little butt, you get a little small of your back. That one area.
Yeah.
That we don't even think about that as women. We never look at the small of our back.
No.
We look at the front, and then maybe on the side we might look at our belly. There's a pooching.
Yes. Yeah.
And we never look at this beautiful part of our back that can be accent.
Interesting. Gosh. Okay. Well, there's a lot of information, and actually, there's so much I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of. But absolutely, because I think that there is so much involved, right? Like even just the way that a dress or a design is cut has so much impact alongside the material as well. But I would say, and the last question before we go, which I think that when it comes to the way that standardization and your approach has been, now having this kind of like bird's eye view of this industry and the evolution of how it's happened, do you feel like maybe if you were to start from scratch, you'd eliminate certain things and keep certain things in the way that we've evolved in terms of fashion?
Definitely. If I could start over, I think standards would be the first place I'd start. And understand standards is a big, and it's complex. It's everything from how we describe a stitch to the placement of where we measure something. So, there are 8 different waists. 8. 8. And even the IEEE has been working on
What's the difference between 2?
Well, some of them, there's your pants waist, there's your natural waist, there's on men, there's a pelvic tilt that occurs. Men, their little bellies stick out, and it's more of an angle. So there's a bunch of waists, right? Okay. So if we just look at language and then also being very clear about the math on all of this and getting some standards around the math and the assumptions there, I think that would go a long way. So there's a biblical, I think it's a biblical story of the Tower of Babel. And Babel was, I guess it was this town, Babel, they decided to build a tower to God. And they were building, they just kept going and going and going and going. And God was like watching their hubris and was like, well, let's see what we can do about that. And, wave a magic wand. And suddenly everyone spoke a different language and they couldn't communicate, and work stopped, and it started falling apart because they were not able to build, right? So language and communicating is so critical to success. So if we ever want to build the ultimate tower,
Mhm.
the ultimate perfect fashion machine. We have to start with the most basic fundamentals of communication and how we talk to each other, and creating connectivity and community in that.
Mhm. I love that. That is it's a great metaphor for everything that you're doing right now. I want to thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
It has been an enlightening episode, certainly to give us perspective, because these are like the nitty-gritty items that you just don't know,
Such a mystery.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell people about this amazing world that I've been in.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for being here. And we have to have you back. Part two, we are gonna get into it even more.
Definitely.
So love it.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Dana.